Hi, my name is Adele Wimsatt, and I'm a women's health practitioner and cyclical living guide. I co-authored the book Essential Feminine Wisdom, and I run an online and in-person women's health clinic where I support women to optimize their hormones. Now, what I do is bridge the science and the woo, because that's very much my personality. I love to know the data. I love to know the research, which is based purely on what works for women. But I love to bridge that with more woo woo elements around women's health. So you get this fully holistic approach. My niche within the women's health world is supporting women with ADHD to understand the impact their hormones have on their traits. And so this workshop is just a very brief introduction to our cyclical nature, which probably makes you think, well, what's that? Well, by the end of this, hopefully you will begin to have a taste of why we are cyclical beings as opposed to men who are linear beings. So obviously, this relates to our hormones. And quite often, when we're speaking about women's hormones or hormones in general, we seem to refer to these ones down here, our progesterone and our estrogen. And the others tend to get forgotten. However, they are all vital in understanding how to optimize our reproductive hormones. Now, the focus of this workshop is very much going to be around our cyclical nature, which will focus on these ones at the bottom of progesterone and estrogen. But I just wanted to bring to the forefront this hierarchy of hormones that we have in our bodies, that if we want to optimize our reproductive health, that we must take these other hormones into consideration. This is the food chain of your hormones, if you like. So, quite often, when I'm working with women in clinic, we really want to get down to look at what's happening in terms of your adrenal function, in terms of your blood sugar regulation. How well is your insulin working? What's going on with your testosterone? Testosterone is a human hormone, it is not a male hormone, and it does so much more than just work on our libido. So it's a really important one to look at. Again, our thyroid plays a massive role in our menstrual health and is actually much more likely to become imbalanced in women than it is in men. So you really want to support that, particularly when we're transitioning through in perimenopause or if women choose to take HRT. So there's all these hormones work together. Hormone balances don't exist in a vacuum. If one is out, it's very likely that there will be other hormones that need support as well. So I just wanted to set the context of looking at our hormones in their entirety, our entire endocrine system, as opposed to just focusing on estrogen progesterone. Although, for the purposes of this little introduction, we will be focusing on those. So, what are the female reproductive hormones? Now, this chart on first glance looks really scary and messy, and I promise you it isn't. I'm really passionate about empowering women with knowledge, one, so we can advocate for ourselves when we need to, but two, so we can really understand what is happening to our unique physiology, understand our unique rhythms, our cycles, so that we can create a model of health and wellness that fits within a feminine model rather than trying to do the same thing everyday approach, which is very masculine, which I'll come on to, but actually understanding our hormones. So, in a minute, we're going to move into looking at this cycle, and it's really important to understand our fluctuations, but to understand these hormones. So, as you can see here at the beginning of the cycle, this would be day one. Day one is the first day of your bleed. It's not the spotting if you have that, it's day one of your bleed, or if you're not naturally cycling or menstruating, it would be the new moon or the dark moon, depending on your preference. But your hormones, as you can see, are really low here. And then around day three, our lovely estrogen begins to rise, and this peaks until there's hopefully enough to push that egg out for ovulation, which is the star of the show. I want to know if your body is ovulating, because if you are ovulating, that means you'll be producing beautiful progesterone. If you aren't ovulating, your body's not going to do this. You would just see a flat line here of estrogen and progesterone down here. So, if your body is still ovulating, it's so important to understand your hormones because, despite popular belief, our hormones do so much more than get us pregnant or give us a period. They support every system in the body. So, for example, estrogen, I like to call her the sexy party girl of the hormone world. She's sociable, she's energized, she makes you feel good, she keeps you nice and lubed and juicy in your body. So, amazing for vaginal health, amazing for your joints, supports your digestive system, keeps your eyes nice and moisturized, great for cognitive function, supports executive function, so a really important one for neurodivergent women particularly. Lifts our mood, our skin elasticity, our body temperature, our immunity, our gut microbiome are all affected by estrogen. So she protects our long-term health. She protects us from cardiovascular disease, which is the biggest killer of women. She protects our bone health, our muscle strength, potentially protects us against Alzheimer's and dementia. So it's so important that we know that our body is creating these in balanced and harmonious amounts for our unique physiology. Now, as I mentioned, she's the party girl of the hormone world, but we know that too much partying is not good for us. It makes us feel horrible. Okay. So Mother Nature has balanced this out with her sister hormone, progesterone. And we actually produce a lot more progesterone than we do estrogen, which shows how much the body loves it. But she will only be produced if you have ovulated. So she is like the Zen yoga chick of the hormone world. She comes in and says, calm down, estrogen. It's time to balance everything out to be calmer. Okay, so she supports with anxiety, sleep, that kind of feeling of overwhelm, that scratchy feeling that we can feel inside can be indicative of progesterone deficiency when we're looking at hormone imbalance. So she also protects our breast health. She also protects our cardiovascular health. So plays lots of roles in supporting our general well-being. So hopefully you're beginning to get this picture now of your hormones being so much more than just whether you can have a baby or not. So we're looking at estrogen and progesterone being these lovely balances, because if progesterone isn't there working in the way that it should, we can experience symptoms of something called estrogen dominance. And that's not because we're producing too much estrogen always, it's because of this relationship with progesterone. So here we can see heavy periods, painful periods, clots, sore breast, PMT. These are things we'd be looking at here. So we want to get to the root cause of these imbalances. And then, of course, testosterone. I'm usually on my soapbox talking about testosterone because it's seen as this male hormone. And if it ever comes into discussions around women's health, it tends to be focused on libido. And testosterone is so much more for women than whether we feel sexy or not. So, testosterone is a human hormone that we actually, as women, produce more of than we produce of estrogen, because testosterone is a precursor to estrogen. So we can see these imbalances sometimes. Women with PCOS, for example, produce a lot more testosterone. When we're going through perimenopause, we can have this imbalance as estrogen's declining of too much testosterone, start to see things like hairy chins and nipples, which is always nice. So you want to keep that testosterone in balance. But testosterone also helps with our confidence, with our energy, with our strength. So there's lots of roles that testosterone plays, yet she's often missed out when we're talking about women's health. So I just wanted to give her a little bit of a platform here. But what you can see is this dance that the hormones do throughout the month. Every single day in a woman's body, something different is happening. So when we're thinking about how we take a model of health, we need to work with our unique rhythms rather than trying to push and power through doing the same thing every day in these very masculine male models of wellness. So just to touch on this to show the difference here we've got the women's cycle. So there's 4 phases, which I'm going to go deeper into. And then we've got the male hormonal cycle, which is actually a 24-hour daily cycle where testosterone peaks and falls throughout the day. And it works really beautifully for this 9 to 5 model of our lifestyle. Same kind of eating every day, same kind of exercise every day, same kind of work, same kind of play. There's no fluctuation on a monthly basis for men. However, because we live in a masculine world, we've had to adopt this lifestyle to survive. And therefore, we are living, most women actually are living in a way that does not support our physiology. And therefore, we're seeing things like burnout, overwhelm, anxiety, exhaustion, sleep disruption, and a whole manner of physiological symptoms. In fact, I think it's in my opinion, one of the biggest causes of why women are crash landing into perimenopause with a plethora of symptoms that we just don't see in other countries. So I just wanted to give that comparison because here you can see, as in the previous image, this fluctuation of hormones, which will affect our mood, our emotional regulation, our cognitive function, our energy levels. And yet we're trying to do the same thing every day. So hopefully this video will inspire you to want to start making some changes to make you feel good, because I'm very passionate about the fact that every woman has the right to feel good. And most women I meet do not. So let's start getting into that. There are 4 phases of the women's cycle, okay? From a biological perspective, we have menstruation, okay, which is the first from day 1 of your bleed up until when you stop bleeding. Now, we say up around 5 days is something that we'd be looking at as an average, but every woman's going to be different with what that looks like. So that is our menstrual phase. And then we transition. Remember, this is all transitioning. We don't start, stop, start, stop. We transition. So from menstruation, we transition into something called the follicular phase, which is just a fancy word for pre-ovulation. It's as that estrogen is rising up until our ovulation. And then at ovulation, our estrogen peaks and then begins to decline as we go into our luteal phase. So we have our menstruation, follicular, ovulation, and luteal. But those names are really tricky to remember. So you will often hear in the menstrual health world or women's health world, these referred to using different names. Now, they can be referred to as the seasons of the earth to help capture that energy. So, for example, menstruation could be at winter, follicular spring, ovulation summer, and luteal phase autumn. And I'm going to deeper dive into these. But I like to use the female archetypes, which we're going to really focus on for this workshop. But they can also be for the phases of the moon. So something to say here is often women say, well, I'm on the pill, so I'm not naturally menstruating, because we know that shuts your cycle down. So you won't have this ebb and flow, it'll just be flatlined. Where also women who don't have a womb, women who are post menopause, this is where we can connect up with the moon, which all sounds very woo-woo, but trust me, it works. You may not feel the intensity of the shifts in each energetic phase, but you will definitely notice an ebb and flow. For postmenopausal women, sometimes what I see is you connecting more with the earth seasons than this monthly fluctuation. So begin to connect in with yourself. Our masculine intelligence is our head and our logic, which we've had to be in. But our feminine superpower is our body. Coming back to our body and listening to what our body has to say to us. How many times have something happened, you've gone, I knew that, or my body, I didn't feel right, my gut feeling on things. These are one of our superpowers. So connecting in with this to see where you are and how you feel. But what I want to do now is deep dive into some of these phases. So let's begin with the maiden energy. Okay, so this correlates to that pre-ovulation, that follicular phase. It's the spring energy of the season, or what we call the waxing moon. So when the moon has gone from being dark and invisible in the sky to just growing from the new moon to getting bigger and bigger as she gets towards the full moon. So these are all the correspondence. And I like to think of her as the 1990s powerhouse woman in her pinstripe suit, briefcase, Prada glasses, Louboutin shoes, ready to go and smash it. It's very masculine attributes in this phase that we could see, like action, assertiveness, just getting shit done. This is the energy of the maiden phase. And biologically, it's where we're seeing that estrogen rise. We've just probably come out of our menstruation cave, which we'll come on to, because remember, we're transitioning out into this. And instead of coming out, we're coming out into spring. Okay. So you think what the earth is coming back awake. The trees are budding. These new things are birthing on earth, these new energies. So if you imagine the bear coming out of the cave after hibernation, he doesn't come sprinting out full pelt going for it. Gently comes out, has a look around, thinks, right, what am I going to do? And then we build up energy, building, building, building up until that ovulation peak. So the maiden energy of this phase is similar to our 20s in terms of our life season. So we're very action orientated. It's very external, dynamic. It's a great time to plan, to catch up, to get things done. It's the time of the post-it note, the to-do list. Really thinking about, what do you want to achieve in this next lunar cycle or this next menstrual cycle? What are your intentions? And they don't have to be these great big grand things. It could be redecorating your front room, or it could be a complete change in life path. This is the phase to do it. It's a great time to set new health goals. Don't start a new health goal when you're about to come on your period. That is not the energy that is going to support you to do this. So it really is a good time to get focused, get clarity. It's a great time to detox. If you like to detox and juices and that kind of thing, it's a really good phase to do that. In terms of exercise and movement, you really want to start building up that energy again. So if you're somebody who loves cardio and likes to get really active and sociable, events that are things that are really sociable, you might want to go to that have got this fun element to it. Or you might want to go and just smash your personal best, go and really push yourself to go through it. So this is the energy of that season. And then transition into the mother. This is where estrogen is really hitting that peak just before that, as I said, the rock star of the menstrual cycle before ovulation. But if you aren't ovulating anymore, this would be the full moon. So it's the summer when we think everything's in full bloom. It's really sociable. It's really abundant. This is the mid-cycle. So this is a time. Unfortunately, this archetype is what society expects us to show up as all the time. This relentless giver and doing it with a smile on your face whilst looking really pretty. We give and give and give because this is the expectation. However, I talk about this in the book, is the strengths. Each season, each phase has a strength and a shadow. And when we feel ourselves resenting people asking of us, it could be our children, it could be our partners, it could be our family members asking things of us, and we feel resentful, it's the shadow side of the mother. So I talk more about this when I'm working with women, but obviously this is an introduction. But I just want to raise that concept that each phase has strengths and shadows. And we're very much focusing on the strengths today. But this is when you're in balance and you're feeling good in this phase. And if you're not resonating with what I'm saying for each of these phases, that's a pretty good indicator that there's an imbalance that needs to be worked on. But when you're in balance in this phase, it's time to love on those around you. Whereas the maiden energy is very much about herself, albeit external. This mother energy is about the we. So maiden is the I. What do I want? What do I need? Whereas mother is about the we and the you. So we want to connect. It's a great time to have social events. It's a great time to host places, do the play dates, do the dinner parties, do the going out. This is the phase that you need to be careful, and the maiden, of letting her fill your diary, because it's very much a yes phase. So in terms of like your business, it's a really good time to collaborate, to connect, to communicate. Your confidence is high, have difficult conversations, ask for a raise. This is a really good time that you can get away with burning the candle at both ends. I don't suggest that, but this is a time that you can do it. You can do the long hours, but you can do the socializing as well. So estrogen that's high here is anabolic. It's a grower. It's a great time for strength training, really wanting to build those muscles. Estrogen helps strengthen your muscles, which is why when it's deficient, when in older women, we can see like the muscles wither away. This is called sarcopenia. So it's a good time to get feedback. It's a good time to ask for honest criticism, because we're much more able to see the bigger picture and receive that. It's a great time to batch cook for other times in your cycle where you're probably not going to feel like that, because we then transition into the enchantress, and she's the one society doesn't really like. She's the wicked stepmother in the fairy tales that girls are warned, do not be like her. Okay, it's our premenstrual phase, it's our luteal phase, our autumn. And just as the trees are shedding their leaves, it's this letting go. It's surrendering, it's reflection. From being outward and external at other phases, we come in. It's time to reflect and come inwards. So, just as the moon is waning in the sky, she's gone from big and full of ovulation to moving through waning. So, that energy going away until she moves towards the dark moon again. So this is, if you experience PMT or struggle in this phase, this is your body screaming at you to slow down. This is the same season of our life as our perimenopause phase. So it is a time where we unfortunately are living in a world that requires us to be action, 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 go, 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 go. However, what we're being called to do in this season is slow it down. So this is a really difficult juggle for a lot of women and often where we see a lot of symptoms. So it's time to cut back, slow it down. I'm not talking about checking out of life for 7 days, although that would be nice, but finding non-negotiable time to just stop, whether that's 5 minutes. Everyone has 5 minutes a day that you can stop and check in with yourself, where you can breathe. Attach this to a habit you already do. Attach this to when you already have a drink, to stop and breathe. Where am I? You really want to avoid traveling during this phase. Keep things simple. You don't want to begin a complex task in this. It's going to require a lot of cognitive activity because you're just going to end up getting frustrated with yourself. That inner critic is going to get loud. One of the things I love to do in the mother phase is create something called the thank bank. That when this inner critic gets loud, you can go in there and look at yourself. When you second guess yourself, when you think you're not good enough, you can go back to when you were in a stronger place and look at how to remember that that inner critic can't get loud. Really, you must honor your sleep during this phase. Good sleep hygiene, clearing the diary from all non-essentials so you can slow right down. And in terms of exercise, this is not boot camp territory. Okay. This is time to slow down. This is time to do things like yin yoga, walking, maybe just time by yourself, something really gentle to honor and move the body. And there's an oil that I love called Forgive because it's a really good oil to help move through any challenging symptom, the experiences that are coming up. It's not a time for action. It's not a time for you to do anything about the things that are irritating you. It's a time to reflect on them and then use the maiden and the mother phases to respond and put those issues into place. There's lots of gifts in this phase if we take the time to listen. And then how many of you get that build up and go, oh my gosh, I just need to bleed? And then she comes, our crone phase. Okay, this is, many women don't like this name because it resonates with the hag in stories that we're told not to be like, but actually there's great power in her because she is complete. And this is menstruation. This is our inner winter. And when we look at the trees in winter, they look like there's nothing going on because everything is happening inside. That tree is still growing and nourishing and nurturing itself, but it's gone within. And this is very much our role. Rather than again being external, it's about coming inward and processing our lessons and integrating before we're reborn again into, because we're going into the next cycle, into the next season. So this is the dark moon or the new moon, whichever you prefer to work with. And it's a time to just stop, to retreat. Okay. Again, I'm not saying we pack ourselves away for 7 days and don't see anyone, but taking non-negotiable time for yourself is a must. It's not something we can put at the bottom of the pecking order. You know, I want you to make yourself really comfortable and cozy. I think every woman should have a period retreat box, which is just you get that open and it's just delicious. You know, there's lots of things in there, your favorite drink, your favorite mug, a lovely journal, a pen, some fluffy socks, a hot water bottle. So you haven't got around gathering these things up. You just pull this beautiful box out and devour some lovely raw chocolate that you've kept in there, smell some lovely oils and create this mini little retreat for yourself wrapped in a blanket and stare at a candle. These things don't have to be complex. It needs to be simple. Okay. No exercising if possible. Now, some women find that actually they prefer to. It's like suddenly out of that luteal phase, that autumnal phase we were in, that we transition into this. And it's like, actually, I feel better. Listen to your body. But I would encourage you to, at least if day one, just take that time to be still and slow down because your body will thank you for it. When you honor these two slower, more reflective phases, you are rocket fueled for the other phases that come when you transition back into them. When you push through, which so many of us do, push through that premenstrual phase, push through this phase, we're taking from a depleted cup. And that feeds the exhaustion that we feel. how can you take a more empowered approach to this? Track your cycle. You can go onto my website and download a free tracker. There's a brief video on there on how to do that. And whether you're bleeding or not, see how you fluctuate throughout the month. It's a great time for women, for example, in perimenopause, whose cycles have become irregular, to connect with the moon and track their cycles. It's become so many women go, oh, I feel so much more grounded back in my body by following this. And track your cycles, step one, for at least 3 months to gather this amazing data. Then use that data to use something called menstrual cycle awareness to adopt this feminine model of healthfulness. What are the days that you don't want anything in your diary, where you want to keep clear? For me, it's day 21. That's my psycho day. Okay. I block that out as much as I can. And if I can't, I'll always make sure it's buffered. And I have that marker in there to remind myself when my head feels like it's going to spin on, oh, it's day 21. So it's a transition day for me. So you find out these things and then start to plan your life around it. Mark in your diary. You haven't got a period. You can just put a color that makes you think twice before you put something in there. Oh, actually, that's not going to be a good week for me to do that. Learn about your hormones. Begin to understand. I share loads of information about this on my Instagram. I do free discovery calls. You can always get into places where you can learn about your body, but work with someone who knows what they're doing, because women's health can be quite a complex topic, and it's really important that the advice you're given is advice about what works for a woman's body and optimizing hormones. For example, intermittent fasting done aggressively is really dire for women's hormonal health who are menstruating. But at certain phases and certain seasons, it can be really supportive. So it's about finding these models of feminine health based on your hormonal fluctuations. So as I said, really working on evidence about what works for a female. But harmonizing your hormones. So many women hold all these symptoms, and this amazing doctor that I have learned so much from, he says, when a woman presents to a GP, sort out her hormones first and see what you're left with. And I truly believe that. So the final thing, if it feels right to you, is you can work with me. I am so passionate about empowering women with knowledge so that you understand the why, which is really supportive for making those changes. I run an in-person clinic. I run a women's health clinic with a GP, and I run an online clinic where I work with women all around the world. You can have a free discovery call with me to see if I'm the right person, and if I'm not, I will know somebody that is to be able to refer you on to. And the way that I work is I do a very robust consultation, which I analyze before we meet. And then when we meet, I go through this with you, and then I will explain your symptoms from a hormone perspective, if they are caused by a hormone, within the context of your hormonal health, and give you the why. And then co-create a plan that's based on your likes and dislikes, your lifestyle choices. We co-create a plan to bring this back into balance. So if that sounds like you, I really look forward to hearing from you. And I really hope that you have got something from listening to this today.